This press conference is held in a hybrid mode today, so we have some people joining us here on site in the room, and we also welcome all the participants that connect virtually online from around the world. Today with me on the panel are Marina, our IFR president, and she's also head of global marketing and sales of ABB Robotics. Next to her is Dr. Werner Kraus, chair of the IFR Service Robotic Group and also head of the Department for Robots and Assistive Systems at Fraunhofer IPA. And on the far right side is Dr. Müller, director of the Statistical Department of the International Federation of Robotics. And I should also not forget to introduce myself. My name is Susanne Bieller, and I'm the General Secretary. I would like to hand over to our president to start introducing the report.
Thank you, Susanne. We are very excited to now present our yearly figures here. But before we start that, I'd like to just highlight a little bit about the area. What is a robot? The name robot is being used very generously today, but what we use here is the ISO definition of what a robot is. And it is really an actuated mechanism that is programmable in 2 or more axes. It has some degree of autonomy, and it can move within its environment. And another way of looking upon this is then maybe to see what is not a robot. So software, extremely important for robots, but on its own, it is not a robot. And also remote control drones, for instance, they are not a robot. They are not have the degree of autonomy that would be. Also voice assistants, autonomous cars, ATMs, and so on are not part of the definition robot. If we then look upon the 2 types of robots to make it all a bit more clear, we normally talk about industrial robots and we talk about service robots. And to make that very easy, the industrial robots produce something, the service robots doesn't do something but offers services. That's the easiest way of explaining the difference between the 2. But after that small introduction, let us directly dig into the figures, and we will present them here. We also have it all in a book form here. So for all of you who are interested in more details, please also, you can get access to this book at any time. So we have another very exciting year to look back to, 2022. The highlights of this year is that, again, it was a year with over 500,000 of installations, and that is the 2nd year in a row. So we're now looking at about 553,000 new units being installed globally. And that was a growth of 5%. That means that we can look back to a CAGR now, 5 years of 7%, and also that the installed stock has gone up with another 12% and is almost reaching 4 million. We will focus this presentation a lot about what's happened in 2022, but we will also take the opportunity to reflect back a little bit of what are the last years. And let's look upon the last decade of annual installation of robots and the amazing development that this has had. So since 2012, it has been really a strong growth. And if you look upon the 2 COVID years, it flattened out a bit, but that was recovered completely in 2021. And we see that this growth continues in 2022 with a really strong growth of 5% from a very high level. So CAGR of 7%, and the market continues to grow rapidly. And that, of course, has the impact on the robot stock, if we look upon that, and that has then been growing 30% since 2017. So we are up to almost 4 million robots being installed somewhere out in the world. Look upon where are actually the robots being used by which type of industries. And here, for the 2nd year in a row, the electrical and electronics industry is the largest, for its most units being installed, and second is automotive. Both this large segment both had a double-digit growth. The electronics with a 10% growth, and the automotive had the strongest growth with 16%. For those of you who looked upon the figures also from last year, you could see that there was a big growth also in all other sectors, metal and machinery, plastic and chemicals, and food. Those sectors for this year had a little bit of a stabilizing backwards, but compared to the very high level and the very strong growth that was achieved the year before. But this is a little bit more of a mixed picture, with electronic and automotive having double-digit growth and the other ones being flat or having a little bit of a negative growth this year. If we then again look back a little bit and do a reflection about the last 10 years and just see how the relatives between, if you take automotive, electronics, and cluster everything else in industry, we can see that the market in 2012, there was a market of 159,000 robots. Out of that, 42% was in the automotive sector, 20% in the electronics, and 38% in the general industry. Now, 10 years later, we talk about 553,000 robots, and the industry has then gone from 38% to 37%, so a much, much larger part of the relative part of the market. The electronics has gone from 20 to 28, and the automotive from 4 to 25. So all areas are growing as the market is growing, but the figures are a bit different. And to particularly highlight the industry, this is where we see that there's a lot of new type of companies, especially the is entering the market, and with that also a lot of new type of application and new segments starting their automation journey. And one of the parts that, especially from the industry segment, is the drive of the cobots. So let's have a little bit of a look about the cobot development. That has also got very strong development the last 5 years. And as the whole market grew with 50%, the cobot market, the collaborative robots, grow with a 30%. This means that from 2017, the cobots were about 0.8% of the entire world market, and now it's almost 10%. 9.9% of the total industrial robots market is of cobots. And how the market is expanding also into new application, new segments, and new type of companies. Then let's look on this from a more geographical point of view. And the blue bar is Asia. And also here we can see how Asia is now having over 400,000 installations, followed by Europe with 84,000 and Americas with 56,000. Also here to relative it a bit, now to 2018, the relative part between the regions has also changed. It's gone from 67 parts of the market to 73, Europe from 18 to 15, and Americas from 13 to 10. So we have, with a growing market, a shift of more and more parts in Asia. And the biggest one in Asia is China. So let's look also at the 15 largest markets in the world. China also here, second year in a row, has more than half of the world installations with 52% and grow like the global market with 5%. Followed them by Japan, who had a strong growth of 9%, US 10%, and then Korea +1% and Germany -1%, so more flattish there. These just countries represent about 79%. So very much the dominance of these 5 large countries. When it comes to the rest of the countries, there is there's been growth in most countries. There is a general, which countries are on the list stays rather stable. Some of the big fluctuations figure can be that in 1 year there are some larger projects in one country and less the next year, but generally we see that the main growth, 5%, is showing also globally. So let's a little bit into then half of the market, China, and also here doing the reflection about what happened the last 10 years. So in 2012, which I said 159,000 robots being installed, out of that 14% was installed in China, while today with 553,000 robots being installed, 52% of this is in China. And with that, I'm happy to hand over to Christopher. Drill down a little bit more in the figures per country. So over to you.
Thank you, Marina. I will stay in China for the next 2 slides. And first of all, note that over a decade, annual installations there multiplied by a factor 12 a decade. So this is really something remarkable. And I've seen this before anywhere. The compound annual growth since 2017 was +13%. You can also see that over the COVID period, there was not a real slump in the data. On the contrary, annual installations even continue to grow. The big jump between 2020 and 2021, 57%. And on top of this, 2022 is about 5%. If we a little bit deeper into the industries, we can see the top three in China: electronics, automotive, and metal and machinery. And of those, the metal and machinery had a decline. We had 20% growth of installations in automotive and 7% in electronics. You might also notice that we've reached the 100,000 units installed in just China, just electronics. And it is maybe also a little noteworthy detail: 60% of all the global installations in the electronics took place in China, and 54% of the global robot installations in automotive took place in China. From this, I would like to switch over to Japan. For Japan, we see a strong recovery after the COVID slump, and we record the second highest installation level ever. We had plus 9% in 2022 to around 50,000 units. Exactly, it is 50,400. Second highest, because in 2019 it also rounds to 50,000, but it was only 49,900. If we go a little bit deeper into the customer industries, you can see the same ranking as in China. We have electrical electronics first, growing plus 13%, then automotive plus 3%, and metal and machinery plus 20%. In the United States, and we just the ranking that Marina presented here, we are not going geographically for the map. In the United States, we also have the second level ever recorded after 2018. We have 40,000 new units installed. That is 10% more than in 2021. And we can also see the tape over the COVID slump that we observe in other countries as well. If we have a closer look at industries, we can see that automotive was the growth driver with a very strong plus 47% of installations, more than 1,000 units being installed in the United States in the automotive industry in 2022. And this is remarkable because in previous years, we saw a tendency and a shift towards the general industry. And what we can see in 2022 is that the general industry in the United States rather cooled down their demand a little bit, with different numbers, of course. As you can see, for electronics, we still have growth plus 26%, but it is relatively a smaller market than we had it in China and Japan. We had metal and machinery with a slight decline, and also plastics came with double-digit decline. But this is, as you can see on the slide, if compared over the past few years, nothing unusual. We have rather small numbers, so rather small changes in unit count already create large percentage rates. If we move to Korea, the picture that we observed over the past few years remains. The compound annual growth rate since 2017 is minus 4%. In 2022, we again see something around 32 units, which means we had a sideways movement roughly since 2019. If we go deeper into the industries, you will notice that the semiconductors part of electronics had a strong decline by almost 1%, and all other electronics segments had a strong plus 39%. At minus 5% in automotive. And these segments conduct the main customers in Korea. Overall, electronics was up 3%, which combines these two segments before. Moving to Germany as largest European market and final market in the top 5. Observe this a minor decline. It rounds to -1. As you can see in the figure, it is not even 300 units different from 2021. So we could also call it a sideways movement. What we've seen in after the during the COVID pandemic is a strong growth of demand, which can be traced especially to a segment that we call low-cost robotics. It is addressing new customers in the general industry and outside of manufacturing that started robots and used the COVID pandemic and all the restrictions as a starting point to have a deeper look into robots. What we can also see is that automotive in Germany declined strongly by 27%, while the metal and machinery industry grew strongly by 19%. And the picture of declining automotive, that is something that we witness across Europe in several industries. It just reflects the weakness of the European automotive industry that we also see, for instance, in labor market data across several countries. So far the look into the past up to 2020. Now I would like to spend a few moments on our expectations for the ongoing year and the coming years until 2026, which is our forecast period. We had +5% on the global scale, as Marina said, in 2022, and we expect a slight acceleration and +7% in 2023. There is a lot of backlog in many countries of the world because we had some issues in the past in the industry, and many projects in other industries are postponed or a little bit delayed and drive 2023 numbers. And for the following, we expect on average +7% of growth each year. And I would also like the opportunity to take the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the different regions. Again, the blue bars illustrate Asia, and we expect +7% in 2023 and also +7% on average for the following years. The main markets here is, well, China's economy is usually said to cool down, but if we have an objective look at the numbers, for instance, the OECD, we still see a +5% growth of GDP being forecasted this year and the following year. And also China's 5-year plan intends to be to create more resilience through domestic supply chains, which means we have to increasing investments also in robotics. And in Japan, we have a similar program that is supposed to in the domestic market, and we have also many investments in automotive already being announced. We expect 2023 to be rather flat, but we expect acceleration from 2024. In Europe, which is the largest market in which is the largest market, we think that 2023 will be strong because we have a lot of catch-up effects from backlog, and at the same time we observe, for instance, in our IFR quarterly survey, declining order intake. So we expect 2024 to be a rather flat development, but then we expect continued growth on a rather small scale, plus 4% is our expectation for 2023 for all over Europe, and plus 3% on average each year for the next few years. And finally, we have the Americas, where we expect plus 8% this year and plus 6% on average for the following years. The main reason is that we saw order intake going down in early 2023 in the US as most market, but we've seen recovery in the IFR quarterly survey in the second quarter already. And also we see a lot of support through various acts that are intended to bring production capacity to North America, to the States. So this gives us good hope that there will be growing demand over the next few years. I already mentioned that supply chain constraints were an issue, and they still are, but they are definitely easing compared to the previous year. And still, we are talking about inflation as an issue, but inflation remains higher than we used to enjoy it in the past decade. But we also see a positive development here in coming back to a normal level of inflation. It is important to note that the slowdown of the global economic growth will probably not have a direct relation to robot installations. Of course, a lot of the overall forecast depends on China as the most market, so the performance of the Chinese market has a strong impact on the overall results. I already noted that we had a lot of order back from 2022 that drives turnover and installations in 2023, while we also observed declining order intake in the ongoing year. So this is why we expect the following year to have a rather flat development. Turning to technological trends, what we observe very generally is that some keywords that we already used in previous years, maybe more in terms of a future development or ongoing development, now step turn into actual products and that are actually offered on the market. Things in this respect are, for instance, cloud computing, G networks, the new business models that go along with this. And in terms of machine vision, we see programming through the use of sensors, detection of shapes and guide grippers in complex environments. These that we already pronounced or gave as an outlook in the past are becoming more and more real products now and available to the market. They are ready to market. Also, artificial intelligence is something that has been talked a lot about in the past, but now it is really something that we see in products available. It makes the robots smarter, faster, more efficient. It enhances the ability to maintain for maintenance. It speeds up programming through, for instance, things like learning by example or by experience. And it is also something overall that is adding to the sustainability of robots. Market trends that we see, what we observe is in many developed countries that the labor scarcity, the lack of qualified or sufficient labor on the labor market is a motivation to investigate more and more automation solutions in the broadest sense, and especially in robotics. And also something that I already said with the forecasts, for instance, for China, for the US, for Japan, the consideration of supply chains, closeness to customers, having things back together in a geographical area is something creates demand for additional robots, because especially in highway, it is just a matter of economic performance and competitiveness to increase productivity, to keep the prices on a competitive level. Small, medium-sized enterprises, Marina already mentioned this, is an important topic also for robot suppliers. And one of the barriers to make them use robots, in our perspective, is currently the access to information about what automation can actually do for them. And this is why I would like to highlight that the IFR developed a platform called GoForRobotics.com, which is intended especially for this customer group as a first and neutral step, not by a specific company, but neutral from our platform, vendor neutral information for small and medium enterprises interested in robotics. And with this, I would like to hand over to Werner, who will dive a little bit deeper into the development of service robotics.
Right. Yes. So Christopher already the labor market which is driving robotics industry. When we're now looking at the service robotics after some years of COVID, we see that basically all branches all over the world have a lack of labor. Is it in production, healthcare, restaurants, agriculture, or in cleaning? There are missing people who are doing the job. And we can also see this looking into the job statistics. Here's, for example, given for the European area, where currently around 3% of all jobs are vacant. And this is almost double of vacant jobs than before COVID. This means the service robotics market is driven mainly by the lack of labor. And that's also the reason why we've compiled this report with over 400 pages, and which goes into a lot of application domains where actually service robots are already deployed or short before really they scale up into the industries, especially in the area of professional service robotics. When we are looking into our market figures, we've also measured a continuous growth of the service robotics market. In the area of the new professional service robots, 158,000 robots were deployed last year. This is a growth of 48%, also a tremendous growth. Looking into the consumer service robot market, especially vacuum cleaner, mowing robot, we have 5 million robots worldwide, which is shrinking by 12%, which is probably because people go out again. And today it's more the labor market which is driving the service robotic market on top. Looking into detail into the top 5 application areas for professional service robots, the largest market for market figures is transportation and logistics. These are all autonomous mobile robots which are deployed in warehouses or in production, but also the robots which we more and more see also in restaurants for clearing tasks, for example, or also doing transportation tasks in hospitals. Next comes medical and the healthcare market, which is almost constant with 9.3 thousand robots. So that are surgery robots or robots for rehabilitation. So the market is, from the figures, smaller than transportation, but the robots are really expensive. And then comes agricultural, mortality robots with almost 25,000 robots. Here's a tremendous increase, doubled, more than doubled, 125%. That are mainly telepresence robot, and these figures are reported from the Asian market, actually. Looking into agriculture, so on the one hand side, the milking robots, on the other hand side, field robots is rising with 18% to 8,000 robots. And then we have the cleaning sector, which have risen by 8% and is now 6.9 thousand robots worldwide. So for the first time, we digged this year into 3 focus areas. And so there we made interviews with robot suppliers in this area, asking for actual market observation, trends, forecasts, and is the mobile robots in everyday indoor environments. So that are robots which support, for example, in elderly care locations, but are also the clearance robot, which we see in restaurants, which take the trays to the scullery. And the driver in this area is the massive short of staff. It's not that easy from a technical point of view to guarantee safety and a perfect use, because these robots are among other people, right? And also are operated by untrained people. So the people, they are not roboticists. They are elderly care staff, for example. So therefore, it's essential that we have ease of use and also user friendliness. And on the other side, we have also a real human-robot collaboration on the one side with the guest, but also with the staff at this point. The same applies also in the area of floor cleaning robots, which are used in supermarkets, in airports, train stations, where we have also a shortage of staff. And here we have also the collaboration between human and robots in that sense, that the robot is cleaning the big areas and the human in parallel is taking care about the edges and the special tasks for cleaning. We see also increasing level of autonomy. So for example, the robot can automatically change the water, dispose the wastewater automatically. Also here, the market is strongly driven in the Asia-Pacific region. And as a next step, we also see that the robots are further developed, that they receive also an arm, that they are not only limited to clean the floor, but for example, also clean a table, for example, so making 3D cleaning. Then the next focus area where we did interview companies was the area of agriculture. Here it's of course also shortage of worker. On the other hand side, also the environmental issues. We have strategies towards ecological agriculture. The good message here is that the safety issues are overcome for today, as it's no longer a market entrance barrier. So it's relatively easy. Safety systems, for example, with a cable around the robot, which detects a collision. It's a simple solution, but efficient. And the point is here that the robots are used to taking preventive actions instead of cure in the crop protection. And we have, of course, always a robot together with robotic processes, for example, for weeding. And the challenge here is the fully autonomy in the locomotion, that the robot can really work without a human supervising it. So all these robot market, more than 100 pages, it's driven by almost 1,000 companies, service robot suppliers worldwide. And here we have also a succession of the trend which we have observed last year, that we had really baby boomers year between 2013 and 2016, where up to almost 80 new companies were funded every year. And these are no major, because they are older than 5 years. They are consolidated. They have done the way in the market. And today, around 9% of this almost 1,000 companies are younger than 5 years. This means we have 9% of startups. We see that there's, of course, lots of startups going on in robotics, also service robotics. But this data here is focusing on the robot producer. And lots of innovation is done on top of these robots, for example, in the area of fleet management. Since a couple of years, we have, for example, standardized interfaces to autonomous mobile robots, VDA 5050, which is pushed forward by automotive industry. And there are, for example, now also robotic startups. They do not produce their own robots, but they are doing fleet management, for example. And that's one kind of innovation area. And on the other hand side, we also see a consolidation towards standardized hardware, which is also part of the explanation for this figure. Looking into the one level higher, comparing industrial robotics with service robotics, we see that we have 5 times more robot suppliers than industrial robot suppliers. So worldwide, we have almost 180 industrial robotics suppliers worldwide and almost 1,000 service robot supplier. The reason is, of course, because the service robot supplier is always the product for a specific application. It's for cleaning, transportation, surgery. And therefore, we have a much more diverse market, and therefore also much you can also 5 times more service robot suppliers worldwide. Yeah, we can go on looking into the research trends. So around 50, 60 years ago, we started with industrial robotics. Then it goes to autonomous mobile robots. From there, now we have to leap toward AI-enhanced robots. It goes towards cobots. And when we are looking today into the into the press and also press releases, what's going on in the market, we have a tremendous trend toward humanoid robots. There are lots of activities, also venture capital is put into this market. And so the trend goes in this direction. But we don't see these robots as prototypes. They are not available in our market figures. And the same applies also for the robots with arm, without arms. So they are already in the market and used for applications in security or for example. But we see we are really on the track, and more applications are now really scaling up in an exponential growth. Looking into the future, from our outlook perspective, we have a tremendous market pull from the external challenges. We have high-tech robots actually, but when we're deploying them into the application environment, we have challenges like doors, for example, or that the robot can change floors. This means he has to communicate with elevators. Here we have also new software solutions like Open Robotic Middleware Framework, OpenRF, which allows a robot to communicate with an elevator, which lowers these challenges. The good message is that the service robots are collaborating with humans, so they are increasing productivity, but we have never this scenario that we have light out areas. There's also a human, which is supported by the robot. And then we have, it's more a software business, like the fleet management. And we see that the humanoid robots are still in the early days, but it's really clear that the market goes into this direction, but still there are also lots of questions with humanoids like grasping, scene understanding, safety. Also, is there a business case behind, because such a robot is quite expensive. Also therefore, there are a couple of questions which are not yet solved in an easier case, for example, on a cobot case. Yes, and with this, I want to end the service robotics report.
Thank you for all of my panelists for presenting, and I would like now to stop the presentation and open the floor for your questions.